Hey Toby, how you been keeping, pal?
Very well, very busy, me old son. But yeah, can't complain at the moment. Thank you. Can't complain.
Glad to hear it. So as you say, you've been busy. You've just released the single itself. You
Yeah.
just released Even Up the Score. I'm guessing that is a sign of things to come with the third album.
Well, it is and it isn't. It's kind of an interesting bridging song. We felt that it represented a good sort of stepping stone from what the band were to where they're going. I think this album that we're just literally. I'm in the final throes of final bits of vocals. You catch me just taking a break from recording right now, actually. But I think, as ever with any band, what you hope happens every time you make an album is you progress naturally. There isn't a sort of huge, sort of like conscious effort to become something else. What you do in the best possible ways, you just try and learn from the experience of playing with the same people for a long time, and the touring, and also you get to know each other. I think the big thing that is really important about being in a band is that you understand that it's a people business. It's about the people that are involved. It's about the relationships, and they themselves, inform the narrative, if you know what I mean, and inform
Yeah.
the way that you go forward with the music, because you all talk. You get to know each other. You understand each other's a game, and what you're not so good at, and how you support each other, and that's how bands are built, and that's how they survive. And that is therein lies the rub, because that's often the most difficult bit to sort of maintain.
Yeah.
But I really feel that this third album, as yet unnamed, will represent a big step forward. I feel very excited about this album for all kinds of ways. So we felt that even Up the Score represented, like I say, that stepping stone into what this record will be, and that is yet to be determined by the listeners, obviously. And I know they'll tell me what they think about it.
People always tell you what to think about it, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said there was a progression there. Is that just a change in style, or do you just think you guys have gone down a slightly different route with it, or?
No, like I say, there's been absolutely no major effort to do anything different. But what we have done is it's just a natural, is your classic natural progression.
Yeah,
I think this record feels, I think, I know these are all cliches. I think sadly this is what every band says probably, but I do think it communicates a bit more. I think it's more accessible. I think there's an easier, slightly lighter of touch to this album, which I'm really pleased about. Because one thing I feel that every band needs to do is not worry about what other bands are doing. You've got to just do your thing. You've just got to be who you are, and just indulge yourselves in your own approach to the music. And I think that's what we've done. We love what we love, and we've brought it to bear on this record. So I really hope people like it. I certainly think I think it's the strongest record we've made. I'll even put my hat in the ring and say that.
Well, it must be pretty strong then, mate, because those first two albums are stunning.
Thank you. No, well, that's very kind of you to say so.
No, I don't. I don't say anything. I don't mean, mate. I've been a fan of you for many years. Seen you, obviously saw you with Gun was the first time I saw you. Then saw you solo, and actually with Fast Eddie with Fastway.
Brilliant! Yeah, great day. They were great days, and what an experience that was. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I bet that was a hell of a tour with Saxon, because I was at the Nottingham date for that. So that was a great chat. So,
yeah.
But obviously it's following Wayward Sons, so I'm even more excited for the third album, mate. I really am.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I mean, and we feel the excitement. I mean, I know it's been a very strange year for everyone, but weirdly, we set off to full canter. We went off into Europe with Steel Panther, and I know that Steel Panther aren't to everyone's taste, but they were a brilliant live band, and we played to some massive audiences all over Europe, and we picked up a lot of fans, a lot of friends, and it was a brilliant tour for us. And we came off that tour absolutely slick, and it felt so great. For then it all to a crashing, resounding sort of halt, and but we felt that we'd done some really good work on that tour. It was a real joy to realise that the band had galvanised and we'd become a really solid unit. Because even though we felt that through the first album's touring process, I think weirdly touring the true thing what it used to be. You know, that album, although it only lasted 2 tours, be it sort of Black Star Riders and then going into Europe with Panther, it actually was very intense and a very prolonged period of touring. And it's just a shame that we couldn't continue that through the rest of the year. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those really. But you know, hey, you got to move on. You know, I don't like to be. I'm an optimist. I feel very positive about the future, and I know music will return stronger than ever. You know.
Oh yeah, I was chatting to Cormac Neeson a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying a similar thing where we think that because certainly on the live scene anyway, I've seen a lot of great music being produced in forms of studio form coming out of bands, but certainly on the live scene, obviously for obvious reasons, it's not really happened this year, and we sort of optimistic that it's going to be a case of those gigs on a Tuesday night where you think, oh, I've got work the next day, or this is happening, or I'll go see them next time. Everybody's been so deprived of it for so long that no one's going to make those excuses anymore.
No, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. I think what if anything, the whole COVID-19 pandemic has proven is that people have had to take a long, hard look at themselves, at their lifestyles, at the things that they love, the relationships that they've got. I think far from it being all negative, I think there's a lot of positives in that. I think, you know, I've certainly taken stock of my position in the world and my relationships with my family and my closest friends, things like that. And I now realise I did realise how important all that was before, of course I did, but I think it's brought it into sharp focus. And I think it's made me realise how important that making music is and what it means to people. I mean, I've been doing online shows. You might
I've seen a few.
That. I've been doing a lot of those especially through the first lockdown period. I did about, I think, 12, 13, maybe more in every single, you know, I did them every single week for that period of time. And it was astounding, the reaction, absolutely astounding. You could just tell people had just had to face the fact they weren't at work. They had nothing else to do. There's only so much Netflix you can watch.
Oh, yeah.
And they turned back to their favourite records and their favourite artists, and you know, started to reevaluate all that. And I think that's a really positive thing. And I prefer to take the positive out of this situation. It's dreadful. Some, you know, a lot of people have suffered massively, not just medically, but there's a lot of mental health issues. I'm sure will surface after all this sort of hopefully subsides. But I feel that, you know, the arts, music, movies, books, you know, that's the salve that salves the human spirit. And so I just think people are going to go crazy for it again. I mean, one thing I always think about is if you read about the Spanish flu, you know, which happened in 1918 and lasted until 1920, they call it the Roaring Twenties because the same thing happened when that abated. The whole world went crazy again and sort of re-energized itself because they've been deprived of all the things that they knew so well. So let's hope that's what happens.
I hope so, mate. I think, like you say, you've got to focus on the positives. They are there. It's easier to focus on the negatives sometimes, but the positives are there. And you say about the arts, I know certainly from my wife's point of view, she's a pencil portrait artist and stuff. And I know where she's got her part-time work to subsidise what she's trying to do with her art career. And obviously she was furloughed and stuff, and she was like, right, now I've got the time to follow my passion. And she went and did that, and the work that has come out of that, she went and explored other mediums with painting and that kind of thing, which you've not done before, and all the rest of it. My bass got more attention than it has probably in quite a long time, because that's the same thing for me. I was working from home and I thought, you know what, I don't have this time, because between my 9 to 5, between Stone Dead Festival work, between Just Push Play Festival and then gym or whatever, I don't have the time to pick up and play it like I once did. But that was my fault for picking up and thinking, oh yeah, I can still play Immigrant Song, and no, I couldn't.
Great stuff. But at least you tried, Lee. That's the point, right?
That's the point. You know, I had to get the rust snapped off my fingers first, but a few weeks in lockdown, I got my fingers back eventually. So that was it. So you mentioned the album there. Is there any known on the date or anything for the release of that yet, Toby?
No, we're still because of the fact that we've been under the jurisdiction of the restrictions of getting in and out of studios. It's been very difficult to be able to pin down an actual finish time, even to, because, you know, because obviously what you do is you make your record, you finish the album, you know, you get it mixed, and then you sort of present it to the record label, in my case Frontiers Music in Italy, and then we base that delivery point on we base that release date on that delivery point. And so until I can get that record done and finished, which I'm not prepared to give it to them until I'm absolutely 100% happy with it, we can't fully guarantee a release. But but I think it's safe to say it's going to be the spring. I think, you know, we all feel confident that that's possible. It might push into the beginning part of the summer, but with the way that we're couching it really is that there's likely to be some more singles released off the album before the album's obviously released fully. And you know, obviously we've got a plan towards, hopefully, fingers crossed, the summer festivals will go ahead this coming year. And so that, you know, you'll start to see us out playing, I would imagine, from the beginning of the festival season.
Yeah. And of course, you just announced your tour in November.
Yeah.
November and December, sorry, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's just November, actually. But yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, you know, Steve Strange, our agents, and you know, myself and Martin, my manager, we all had a chat about that. And you know, it's very hard to know with a cast iron guarantee when you can tour next year. I mean, you know, I can remember conversations happening in the summer where the agents were talking about, oh, it'll be all over by January. We'll be back on the road by February, and you know. But of course, that got pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and now most agents are sort of planning for the autumn. So I think it's a safe enough bet to say that the tour will happen. We're judging by what the promoters have said to me, judging by how we've been keeping our ear to the ground about you know, what the venues are doing. Because I mean, this is the one thing that people may not realise, is that there's an awful lot of venues that aren't with us anymore. You know, there's a lot of going to be a lot of casualties, and so we've had to be very, very cautious about that, because you know, we can only talk to the venues that are pretty certain they're going to still be around. And I know that sounds awful, but that is the truth, you know. So you know,
no, there's a lot of venues in trouble, and it's a sad thing, because those grassroots venues, the smaller venues especially, that are really struggling, is where it's needed most. It's where the live scene's needed most for every band I know from on the rising side of things, you know. And for me, as someone who loves going to gigs, I mean, the last gig I went to was Winter's End Festival back in February, and to go from February to December without a gig is unheard of. Since I was about 11 years old, and my dad took me to see Aerosmith at Wembley. I think that was the longest period of time, other than this year, that I've not been to a gig. You know. Yeah,
it is nuts. It is nuts. But I mean, you know, like I say, I think we can sit around being maudlin about everything, and I don't think that's ever going to solve anything. I just think once we kind of get the green light, I think once the vaccinations start to happen, once people start to feel a bit more confident about going out, once those things start to seriously materialize in the real world, then I think we'll start to see. I don't think anything's going to return to normal for a long time. I don't think that's the case, but I think we can start to see some return to some kind of normality where people aren't quite so worried, you know, and quite rightly, people, you know, it's hard. You can't overestimate the way that people have reacted to this, and I think it's you know, my wife, for instance, she works with older people, elderly people doing exercise, and you know, there's been an awful lot of people that have suffered badly with this situation, and it's very disrespectful not to take that into consideration and understand how that is affecting the wider community. And so I'm more than happy to wait until, you know, things have properly come to some sort of conclusion and we can really move on properly. But until that time, I'll work with everyone to make sure that everyone's safe and everyone's having a good time within those parameters. That's the way I look at it, you know.
No, I think that's all you can do, really. It's just roll with it as best you can and help everyone out as best as you can. And I think that's all we can do as a human race, really.
Absolutely.
So, but to keep everyone's spirits up, as you were saying, you and Dave are doing your Christmas lockdown session in a couple of days' time, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, it was the summer was so extraordinary, you know, doing all those shows, and it was great, actually. I mean, I had such good fun because I was actually revisiting songs, some of which had never been played live. You know, I was revisiting the Little Angels albums and looking at all those songs, and you know, and like I said, there's half a dozen songs that the Little Angels never played live. I played live on those shows for the first time, which was fantastic, and it was great going back and rediscovering what the chord progressions were and trying to remember what the words were. Like, oh my god, yes. But so that was good fun, you know, and I really appreciate it. It gave me a newfound appreciation of that era. Actually, I realized how hard we'd worked as a band and what work we'd done, and even though we were all a bunch of young kids, really, I do think there were some decent songs there, and I think even though the productions sound a little bit dated now, they still were very well recorded records, you know, and I think it gave me that opportunity to really reminisce about it and have a bit of a kind of, you know, trip down memory lane, and And of course, the fan reaction was unbelievable. I mean, those 2 or 3 of the shows that I did, that, I had 1,500, nearly getting up to 2,000 people watching me, which might not sound like huge figures to some of these huge stars that do these things, but for me that was enormous. And the outpouring of love for the music was absolutely incredible to witness. It really was.
Yeah. Do you think, because like you say, you've always been a more forward-thinking artist, you've never really done the nostalgia thing throughout your career? Do you think like being in lockdown allowed you the time to look back and appreciate maybe a little bit more than you might?
That's absolutely right. I mean, I'm not a great believer in nostalgia being, the root of it all. I think it has its place, and I love the fact I was in Little Angels, and I love all the stuff that we did. But I am always all about striding forward. But no, you're absolutely right. It was great to witness it and again and rediscover it, and to make a lot of reacquaint myself with a lot of fans that I haven't spoken to for years, and stuff like that. And I got into some great conversations with people that I used to know that I kind of lost touch with just as a direct result of doing it. So it was just great. The whole thing was just great.
That's cool, man. So have you got any more solo like acoustic lockdown things lined up before Christmas, or?
No. Well, I do. I've got a Patreon site, which is called Toby and the Whole Truth, and I've got a whole group of people that are on that, and I'm doing a kind of private party for that on the 21st, where we're holding like our Christmas party, Toby and the Whole Truth Patreon Christmas party, which essentially is just me drinking wine and playing acoustic songs badly.
It's like any office party, there.
Yeah, exactly, right. So that should be fun. But apart from that, no. But next year I've got big. Obviously the Wayward Sons thing is my priority next year. Get that record out, get that done, get that moving. And then I'm going to start thinking about making my second only solo album. I'm going to make a solo album next year as well and record that. Well, I've kind of written most of it already. So I'm just kind of waiting for that situation. But of course, Wayward Sons takes priority. So
yeah, of course. So how are the rest of the guys in Wayward Sons been doing? I spoke to Sam a little bit, but how's Phil and Dave and the rest of the boys and Nick?
Yeah, everyone's great. I mean, we've all had our crosses to bear through this year, of course. Nick, outside of playing bass in Wayward Sons and leaping around like a maniac on stage, he runs a very successful merchandising company in Leicester. Yeah. And of course, Leicester's had one of the worst hit areas of COVID in the whole of the country, and hasn't been out of lockdown essentially since they went into lockdown. They've been in and out. They've had sort of some local jurisdiction things. So his business has suffered quite a lot because of that. Even though they've managed to maintain manufacturing, they've had a lot of difficulties getting hold of materials and getting the stuff then posted out, etc. And that's affected me as well, because of course his company and my fulfillment company as well. So it's just been a bit like that for him. Yeah. I mean, Dave's the kind of eternal Yorkshireman who just does whatever it takes, and me and him have been working remotely on some projects, so we've been doing bits and pieces. Sam's got a classic car business that he runs outside of being a musician, which is his passion, and he's been doing that. And I think Phil's been doing some online sessions and things. So we've all been filling our time. Yeah. It's just been sad that we haven't been able to spend more time with each other. I mean, we've been doing bits and pieces, like I say, on the album. Initially, it took a little while to kind of get rid of the inertia and try and figure out what to do. But once we were able to rehearse, we had a couple of rehearsals, and we went and did a show for Planet Rock.
Yeah, of course, you did the live thing for Planet Rock.
Which was kind of weird, but it was also really, really good as well. I really enjoyed it, and it was great just to blow the cobwebs off, even though I don't think we were particularly great that night, I've got to be honest, but why would we be? We only had one rehearsal, haven't been together for 6 months or something. So, but no, it was good. And, I think the great thing about the guys in the band is we're all optimistic people. Apart from Sam, all the rest of the guys have been around the block a number of times. We've all experienced not similar things to this, but we have experienced the ups and downs of the rock and roll business.
Of course, yeah.
And I think that you learn to roll with the punches, and I just think this is just a particularly big punch. That's all.
Yeah. So when you recorded the album, did you have to do it segment by segment, Phil coming in doing the drums, or did you manage to get in the studio all together?
Well, it's kind of been a bit of a weird one, because ordinarily my process with Wayward Sons has been very specific. It's all been about live performance-based recording, what I call performance capture, because I do that with my bands when I'm producing bands. That's my modus operandi. That's what I do. Never more so than with Wayward Sons, because that's the vibe, you know. But what we did was, on the Truth, what it used to be sessions, we recorded 30 odd songs, and we only put, I think we put 15 or something, or we ended up using 15 songs.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of songs left over. So I went back to those files, and none of those songs were any worse or any better than the ones that were on the Truth. They just weren't, I felt at the time, suited to that record. So yeah. I went back and examined those files, and we have used some of those backing tracks, although we've now re-overdubbed them, and I've re-edited bits and pieces, and we've gone and replayed bits and pieces. So it was a combination of stuff that we'd already kind of had that existed. But then we did go, I wrote 4 brand new songs in the lockdown for Wayward Sons, and we went into the studio really about 3 weeks before this, 3-4 weeks before this second lockdown.
Okay.
And we had a week in the studio to record those tracks. And since then, I've been working on vocals at home. We were in the studio last week because the restrictions were dropped, and we were able to go there because it was a place of work, and we obviously were under the jurisdiction of that studio, but the studio was open. So we went to the studio last week and had our final recording process. So it's been a bit kind of like, it's been part remote, but mainly it's been based on actual recordings, which I'm really pleased about. But I have done all the vocals and backing vocals at home. That's the only difference.
You think doing that way kept that live element that was obviously on the first 2 albums with Go Shit to Come and Ain't the Truth?
Absolutely, and that's essential for a band like Wayward Sons. You know, we're not. I don't feel that we're the kind of band. We're not a sort of band that does the, for want of a better description, the kind of Def Leppard approach. You know, I mean, that's a very specific, very skilled, very different type of production, and is a different type of record. I think this band it's a live vibe. You know, we want to try and get as much of that on the record as we can. It doesn't mean to say that we haven't overdubbed. We have overdubbed a lot. You know, all the vocals were done here. Like I say, I don't do live vocals live anyway. So, but I've kept as much as we humanly could. And we've then overdubbed the rest and did put it together as a proper production. But I'm weirdly, I was saying to the guys at the end of the session this week, every record marks its own time. The first album was a very, very quick record. It took us just 2 weeks to record it. It was absolutely live, hardly any overdubs at all. Second album was 3 or 4 weeks over a period of about 2 months. We went in the studio 3-4 times, but our focus was very much just on that period. Whereas this album's taken us a year to make, but it's been in fractured small steps, if you know what I mean. And I think that's benefited it, actually, because it's given me lots of time to let it filter down, to figure it out, whether what was working, what wasn't working, go back and rethink things, rewrite lyrics, that sort of thing, rather than just kind of go, okay, I've got to get it done now. I was able to have some reflection time. And I know that, I was talking to Sam a couple of days ago, and I know that Sam feels the same. He's had time to really plan his solos, plan his guitar parts, talk to me about it. We've discussed it at length. So we've kind of had a different experience making this album. And I think that's why this record will sound not massively different, but it will be a different type of record, from us.
Yeah, I think it's that natural progression, like you were talking about earlier. Like when you've got the time for those songs to like breathe for a bit, for want of a better term, rather than just trying to get something down. Yeah. When you're trying to get those songs to breathe, you do make those little adjustments. You hear things you never hear on first term that you think, oh, that needs slightly changing. Like it's the classic, like you say, I don't want to sound stereotypical, but it's the classic third album syndrome, isn't it? Like the first 2 albums, the band's getting to know each other a bit, and then the third one seems to hit their stride. Like my favourite band's Aerosmith. I love them a bit. Like I say, Dad took me to see him 11 years old, hooked on them ever since. So obviously you got your self-titled, and then Get Your Wings album, and then they come along with Toys in the Attic, although not different in style necessarily from Get Your Wings, whereas it's like the natural progression that you were saying about that you're feeling with this album. And that was an album that took them a little longer to do than the first 2 records because, well, they were allowed the money to spend in the recording studio. But
absolutely, and I think all of these things are really important. I live the music business. It's not something I do part-time. I wake up, I do it every day. I have done for the last pretty much most of my working career. Really. There's been 2 or 3 bouts in the middle where I haven't done it, but I've still done it on the side because all the things were happening. But this is my lifestyle. Everything I do, I treat very seriously. I'm authoring this music because it's something I have to do. It's not just, I don't treat it as a job. I treat it as a I hate the word career, but it is my career. I treat it as a poet. I treat it as an artist. I treat it as something that's very, very important, and it's very precious to me, So it's imperative to me that it artistically is very intact. The only thing that I'm interested in at all, really, is the songs, is the music, is the actual things I'm trying to say, and how do I get those how do I communicate those ideas, those narratives? That's my big question mark always. How do I make the best approach of doing that? That's the only thing that matters to me. So when people hear that music, it's authentic, it has a true voice. Then you can decide whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a question of me trying to please anyone. I'm trying to please myself, and that's the only way that you can really do it. Because it's essential that it has that focus, that vision, and that's what I focus myself on, and that's the bit that I care about. So when I'm dead and gone, I can leave behind records that at least didn't suck.
But I think that's the thing, is that when an artist is being true to themselves, that's when the best artwork comes out. Yeah. If you can, some people, I mean, the other day, me and my wife were watching a Saxon documentary, Heavy Metal Thunder, and they go on that when the record company tried to sway Saxon a bit into going down the sort of American-y hair metal type market, and that's not Saxon, and they weren't producing, I'm sure Biff would agree that they weren't producing their best stuff. And when they came back and did like Solid Ball of Rock in their sort of 93, 94, I think. And, they came back and went, right, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it for us, and we're going to do it properly. And then the Saxon fans started coming back. They start going up the ladder again. And I've seen them, every tour since the Inner Sanctum tour was the first tour I saw them on. And I just think they're writing solid album after solid album now. And that's because, like any artist who's, when someone's that genuine and just being honest, it's hard not to like it, even if you don't like that soul, when they're being that open about stuff.
No, that's absolutely right. It's a kind of inner confidence. I think if I could choose one word about this new incoming Wayward Sons albums, it feels confident. It feels super confident. Yeah. It feels like we're not trying to prove anything to anyone. We're just enjoying doing it. And I think that's what I wanted. And I think I had a similar experience with the Little Angels on the Jam album. The first album, it's very, very similar, actually similar trajectory, really, because the first album with Little Angels was very similar, a live bass rock and roll record, that we were young kids. And then the second album was this incredibly complicated sort of, we were running 3 studios, and we had, it took months and months and months. But the Jam album was actually quite, even though it took a while to record, it was actually a very, very easy record to make. And I think, again, we just found our confidence. And I think that's it. And you don't get that until you've had time to really assess each other and have time on the road and to understand each other, and to get you've got to go through some bad times. You have to be able to sort of tell each other off and then forgive each other and all that sort of stuff, because bands are not easy places to exist in. They really aren't.
No, like you say, you've got to be able to say any good mate you bet. I'm the same with my friends. No one understands how me and my best mate Johnny, we're very close, but we're very opposite people. Yeah. And there's times where I go, "What are you doing?" And there's times he goes, "What are you doing?" And then have a spat, but no more than just verbal. We never come in any stupid fights. Don't get me wrong, but it's we pull each other in our places when we're not in there. Put it that way. And then 4 minutes later, well, before COVID anyway, 4 minutes later, we're having a beer and a game of pool, and people go, "Well, you were arguing a minute ago." "Oh, that's between us. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you like each other, and that's and you know that you're in a workings of what they are, and you know how far you can go. And I think there's never a greater experience or a greater example of the human experience than being in a rock and roll band. Believe me, it's intense. It is everything that you have to go through with your friends and your family, but in a microcosmic fashion, in an intense way that you have to then deal with on the spot, quite often when you're in some ridiculous location or some stupid situation. So you've got to have a thick skin. You've got to be prepared to forgive people quickly. You've got to accept people's foibles and not try and change people. You've got to accept people for who they are, and that is the key to it, really. Yeah.
So we've said it's been a tricky year, but what does the next year hold for Wayward Sons, if all goes to plan?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing, Lee. The moment I put Wayward Sons together, it was based on the concept that I will take whatever I can get.
Yeah.
And I will enjoy every moment of it. I am not trying to prove anything with this band to anybody. I've had a very successful career already with Little Angels. I've had #1 records and top 10 singles and God knows what else, and toured the world with some massive bands and sold out some huge venues myself, you know. So with regard to all of that, that stuff to me isn't important. What is important is connecting with an audience, the music being authentic and received for all the right reasons, because people really like it, because it communicates, because it connects. I'm not interested in belonging to a movement. I'm not interested in belonging to any bracket, even though I am who I am and I've done the things I've done. What I'm interested in is people just liking the music for what it is. And so that in itself is enough for me. And so what I hope will happen is the record will come out. People will continue to be interested in the songs as they emerge. They will be interested enough to perhaps want to come and see us play or buy the album. And that will then dictate the terms itself. I mean, I'll give you an example. I never, ever vote for myself on any poll, ever.
Yeah.
And I don't ask my fans to. I don't go in there and make this big hard push. Oh, vote for us, vote for us, vote for us. Because I just don't think it's real. If you've got your family and friends voting for you, what does that really mean? It just means you've got your family and friends voting for you. Yeah. If people want to vote for me because they really enjoy that song and they think it's great and it really delivers something, that is the truth. It isn't something that's fabricated. I want this to be real. And if real means we disappear without a trace at the end of this record because no one's interested in it, then I'll hold my hands up and go, you know what? That's my fault, because that's the only songs I could write. And so that's where my life right now exists, and it has done for quite a while with this band. And thankfully, the fans seem to have reacted really positively towards it, and I will continue to do it as long as they want me to be there.
Well, based on any time I've come to see you live, mate, I think you'll be going for a good few years yet from any of the times I've been in the crowd.
I really, really hope so, Lee. It is a joy to play with these guys. It's been a fantastic experience to see the band grow naturally without too much push. And, you know, that's why I think that's how you grow things really, really seriously that will last. Because I know that I've got more records left in me. I was 53 this year, but I mean, one of my best buddies is Biff Byford, you know, and Biff's 68 years old this now. There's no sign of Biff giving up.
I'm so happy there's no sign of Biff stopping.
No,
so,
I mean, and the guy's just been through a quadruple heart bypass.
I mean, I heard obviously they're releasing the covers album, and obviously after his bypass, I was really I mean, Biff always kills it live. Every time I've seen Saxon live, they've been absolutely amazing. And after the bypass and all that, I thought, oh no, because obviously he's a powerful singer, Biff.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I thought, you know, oh God, is he going to be all right, like singing it? And then heard that cover of Paint It Black, and I'm like, that hasn't stopped him at all.
In a crazy way, I think it's kind of done him a favour to have the rest, because I must admit, I was very worried that they had a load of dates booked that was only about 3 months after he came out of hospital, you know. And I was like, "Are you sure you want to do that, pal?" He's like, "Well, we've got to." I'm like, "Well," I was deadly concerned about that, but you know, I think the lockdown period and this whole year has actually helped everyone to have that bit of time off to recover, and especially for someone like, you know, who's been through something like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, look at him. I mean, he's a powerhouse. The man is a legend. I mean, Biff's cooler now than he ever was in his entire life, and he's 68 years old, and the band are amazing. I mean, you know, we toured with them a couple of years ago with Wayward Sons.
I went to see you guys. I was at the Manchester day of that. So
well, they absolutely blew me away every time they played. They are one of the great British bands, and people miss a trick missing that band. They are so fantastic, and you know, age will not wither and all that. You know what I mean? As long as they're up on that stage and everyone is getting it, then why should it matter? You know, and I feel that about myself. I kind of think, well, actually, in a crazy way, I'm enjoying my 50s more than I've ever enjoyed any decade in my life, and I feel stronger and more kind of able, emotionally stronger more than anything else, and able to deal with the process. And actually, I'm writing better songs. I think. You know, there are 2 or 3 songs on this new album that I think are the best things I've ever written, and I don't say that lightly because I am my own worst critic.
Yeah.
So I hope people agree, and but if they don't, then hey, there's not much I can do about that. You know?
There's not much you can do about it, but like you say, you're happy with them, and that's all you can do. That's all you can do.
That's it. Yeah.
And speaking of new singles, we are going to open up the interview with even up the score. But what song of yours would you like us to close out the interview on?
What, from anything in my career?
Anything in your career.
Right. Wow. God, that's a tall order. That is. Well, you know what? I think actually I would like it to be another Wayward Sons song. I'd like it to be Ghosts Who Yet to Come, because I think that was, for me, was probably the strongest statement on the first album. That's why I named the album after it. It's one of my favourite things I've ever written. And it defines in many ways. It was the defining moment that propelled the band to where they needed to go. I know that a lot of people go, "Oh, no, it wasn't. It was until the end." Well, yes, that was a fantastic, successful song for us. But in terms of the writing process, in terms of what I wanted to do with that band, that song represents the kind of pivotal moment for me when I started to get the idea what Wayward Sons was going to be.
All right, mate. We'll go with that then.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Cheers, Toby. It's been a pleasure, mate.
And you.
Cheers, mate.